Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is OSK, and today I have for you a beautiful tier list, this time on the runes of the game. We will be ranking every rune currently in the game, and also a rune that is not in the game, Chronomaster. Chronomaster is a rune that has a 13-second cooldown and lets you activate the rune to start a 4-second timer. After your 4 seconds is up, you rewind to the health and status you were at 4 seconds before you rewound your time. It's very powerful in a 1v1 fight, and I don't expect it to change when it releases. I think it'll be very similar to the Shadowstep release. And by the way, for those of you that don't know who I am the main color caster for Element, a community-ran competitive Discord that hosts tournaments with cash prizes. I've been playing the game since December 2018 in the pre-alpha stage, and I also coach and do bod reviews for the Spellbreak community. Needless to say, I've seen and played a lot of Spellbreak at the highest level you could ask for, and this tier list will also be based on the solo queue experience for all modes, all platforms, and I will also take into effect what we see at the tournament level of play as well. And for those of you that need to hear this statement, this was 100% absolutely, positively my opinion. Please do not post in the comments about how much of an opinion piece this tier list is. I know some of you are going to do it anyway, you filthy trolls. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get into this. The first rune I want to talk about is Wolf's Blood. This rune lets you howl into the air, increasing your run speed by 4, and essentially granting you wall hacks and x-ray vision for those sneaky types. Important things to note here, while yes, the speed boost is equivalent to wearing epic boots, and the wall hacks let you plan your attack better, these benefits are really not that useful in a game like Spellbreak. Movement is much more important than really anything else, and the fact that Wolf's Blood provides no immediate movement option you can dodge attacks with is pretty bad. Not only that, but the radius to hear a Wolf's Blood's howl is quite large, so you lose that element of surprise every time you activate it, and there's also a visual indicator there too. So yes, while it can be a good early game coordination tool in duos and squads, overall it is outshined by every other rune on this list, and I will place it in D tier instead of F tier, because while it is bad, it does have an okay use in the early game. The next rune I'll go over is Featherfall, and this one has a tragic backstory, because once upon a time, Frostborns could lay down a frost trail, increasing movement speed by 200%, and then use Featherfall to conserve that momentum and travel pretty much halfway across the map with ease. Nowadays, the rune does not conserve momentum, Frostborn does not have that kind of speed anymore, and the rune is a shadow of its former cheesy self. What it does do well is give instant height advantage to anyone using it, which can be pretty useful against anyone using stone, fire, or toxic, and the opposite can be said about frost and lightning, as you're pretty much a sitting duck for those two, or rather a duck hunt simulator with you being a duck. The rune itself does provide a slow fall function, so you can float with it for quite a while, and the rune's cooldown is also recharging while you're in the air, so you can use Featherfall pretty much repeatedly after touching the ground or wind jumping if you're a Tempest. This can be pretty handy in the final circle situations, as you very much have constant high ground while raining spells from above, but if your opponent has lightning or frost, you might be out of luck. This glaring weakness severely limits the rune, and as such I will also place it in D tier, but above Wolf's Blood. It is slightly better than Wolf's Blood, but not by much, as pretty much everyone carries a long-range option, and even if they didn't, all it takes is one person with good aim and a frost to ruin your fun, and I'd recommend looking a little higher on this list. Now let's talk about Invisibility. This rune lets you become invisible for 8 seconds and increases your run speed by 3 while you're invisible. Sounds pretty good. You're not actually invisible, but you're still very hard to see, and you can use the rune to engage in combat, disengage, rotate. There are a few uses for sure. Not only that, but if you play Toxicologist, this will also proc Outbreak for some extra toxic damage. The biggest problem with this rune, however, is the lack of mobility. Run speed alone is not very good, and this rune will not save you from danger like other runes can. There is no dash or other movement option attached to this rune, so dodging spells and sorceries is completely reliant on base movement speed, levitating, and class skills. Couple that with a medium cooldown and the fact that you do not start recharging your cooldown until you are out of invisibility, and you have yourself an awkward rune to use in too many situations. Overall, I feel very confident with placing this rune in C tier, as it does lack a lot of the versatility that the other runes above it have. We'll see if anything changes in the future though. Our next rune is going to be that Chronomaster rune, the one we explained in the intro. This is a bit of a touchy rune since it possesses with it one of the biggest cheese strats in the entire game. Of course, it doesn't possess it right now, but when it's released, you'll see what I mean. This is really the only way it's viable, but it is effective nonetheless. So what the strategy consists of is running the Conduit class with Runic Fluency, equipping the Chronomaster rune, and using the utility that the Overload skill brings to recharge your Chronomaster rune for up to 4 free dives on your opponent, while consistently recharging health and shields. What this strategy does not offer you is a movement option for dodging, nor utility like invisibility, but the sheer power of being able to recharge your health every 4 seconds is quite powerful when performed well. Now, this build does possess some weaknesses, the biggest one being that it can be kited quite effectively with a movement rune, and once your rune charges are used up, you're a sitting duck for an exile. Also, if your opponent sees you activate Chronomaster, they can usually predict where you'll rewind to and set up a big source of damage to punish your misplay. Either way, not the strongest thing in the world and easily cheesable, so I'm only going to place this in C tier. It's quite a niche use, I know, but overall, I think it's still better than Wolf's Blood and Featherfall, so in it goes, bottom of C tier. Alright, so moving up the list, we're in B tier, and I'm pretty comfortable with placing Flight right here. Flight's an interesting one. It possesses the furthest travel distance of any rune in the game currently, and it is maneuverable to an extent, which definitely helps it out. You can use it to engage into fights, escape, you can cancel it mid-flight by tapping the spacebar or jump button for a quick dash, which is pretty useful. It is a rune that sounds great on paper, but in practice it is not so great. Possessing a long cooldown is bad enough, but its main weakness is its ironic lack of maneuverability. Flight lets you fly pretty quickly to your destination, but turning is a different story. When you turn with your flight, your speed is heavily slowed, and players with lightning or frost can track you down quickly. Not only that, but if you hold the flight animation in a straight line, you might as well be playing Duck Hunt again, and again you're the duck. Now, don't get me wrong, the rune can be used effectively by slightly turning and keeping up your speed, so you'll have an easier time with frost users if you do that, and obviously much like Featherfall, you can use this rune to easily claim a height advantage and also cheese the final circle if your opponent isn't running a lightning or a frost. Typically, however, it is outshined by other runes for the functions you might want to use it for. It is unmatched in travel distance, but that alone is not enough to take it higher than B tier. Also in B tier, I'm going to place Teleport just below Flight. Teleport serves much the same purpose as Flight, but it does do it much faster. There is no travel time for Teleport, obviously, other than the small wind-up time at the beginning of the animation, making it a largely safe option for escaping, repositioning, and engaging in a fight instantly. It is easily one of the best runes to use on a long-range Conduit or Frostborn build, given its versatility. Not only that, but there is a small mechanic you can use with the Teleport rune that could win you the game if done correctly. During the Teleport wind-up animation, you can still rotate the camera and your character model to face a different direction. Now, whichever direction you are initially facing will be the direction you teleport to, but if the opponent does not see this, you can very easily make them think you are teleporting in the opposite or a different direction, and this makes for very nice outplays, and when used effectively and executed properly, can seal you in exile. Now, why is it the bottom of B tier? 3 reasons: a long cooldown, a lack of innate verticality, and late game viability. The legendary rarity version of Teleport has a 13-second cooldown, so running Runic Fluency or Conduit is almost a must for this rune, pretty self-explanatory. Now for its lack of innate verticality, there is nothing in its kit other than teleporting to a higher place that allows Teleport to be effective as a height control rune. It is purely meant for horizontal repositioning, and verticality gained from that is merely a bonus, so you need to be extra careful when using it for that reason, especially against Stone Shapers. The last point for late game viability is its use in the final circle. Like I said, you're not really gaining any height from using this rune, so it can be quite dangerous. Not to mention the long cooldown will not help in that tight of space, and the long distance functionality can actually get you exiled if you're not careful. By misplacing your teleport location, you can easily teleport to quite a distance outside of the final circle, which will likely result in you taking a ton of health damage and losing the game. So with that being said, I think it's fair to place Teleport in B tier just below Flight. Okay, now we get into the good stuff. These are the runes you're going to want to keep an eye out for your late game builds, as they all provide great movement and good cooldowns as well. The first rune we'll talk about is the newly released Shadowstep. Shadowstep is a great rune that works very similarly to both dash and invisibility. Basically, you dash in the direction you're moving and turn invisible for 2 seconds, and this allows for some nice outplay potential, engaging, disengaging, hiding, proccing Outbreak on Toxicologists. It's all around a great rune to pick up with most builds. The only thing that holds Shadowstep back is its longer cooldown with 7 seconds at Legendary, starting after the invisibility is deactivated. This means that while the rune functionality is strong, it is costly if you can't capitalize on the advantage gained from using it. One other problem the rune possesses is its lack of momentum carry. This means that if you shadow step forward and levitate, the speed you gain from the shadow step will not carry forward for any distance. This leaves the rune feeling a bit clunky and reduces its travel distance by a noticeable margin, and overall, it's still an amazing rune, which is why I place it in A tier. The last rune we have in A tier is going to be Springstep, and I'm going to place this one just above Shadowstep, but not by much. This absolute beauty possesses the lowest cooldowns across all rarities, and its recently buffed jump distance really helps its placement as well. Much like the rune placed above it that we'll discuss here soon, Springstep also preserves the user's momentum into Levitate, and doing this can increase the effective range of this rune quite dramatically. Not only that, but you can also use this rune in any direction you are moving, allowing for effective kiting and follow-up. This rune goes really well with any class you play. For example, you can put it on Tempest to stay in the air, you can put it on Conduit to create more distance, and it's one of the best alternatives to the rune placed above it. Overall, an amazing rune with amazing range and amazing cooldown, and it definitely deserves its placement in high A tier. Alrighty, I think we know my only placement into S tier at this point. Dash. Dash is an overall amazing rune. Its epic and legendary rarity possess the exact same cooldown as Springstep, which is amazing, and its other rarities aren't too much longer either. What really made me place this rune in S tier above all the others is its sheer versatility. You can go in any direction at a high speed and even change your trajectory mid-dash to really vary your approach or escape. Not only that, but dash also conserves your momentum into other movements, meaning you can dash against the ground and increase your horizontal movement, you can hold levitate after a dash to carry yourself further, much like Springstep, and you can even use it into class skills like Firefly on Pyromancer or Updraft on Tempest to get boosts in both. It's overall just a better version of Springstep, and it fits on literally every class as the optimal rune most of the time. It's absolutely amazing. Definitely the best rune in the entire game up to this point. S tier it goes. So guys, there's a rune tier list all set up for you to see. Hopefully I helped you guys learn something today, and if you disagree with my list, feel free to type up a comment saying why I'm wrong, and we can start a discussion. After this tier list, I think I'm going to start a new meta snapshot series where I group all my tier lists together and just talk about it once a patch, since these things do take a weekend to make, and I don't want to fall behind if patches become more frequent. That should open up some more time to talk about more advanced concepts I want to get into, as well as open up for some gameplay commentaries I can share with you guys, so be looking forward to that. That's going to do it for me today. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube thing. Follow my socials down in the box, especially the Twitch channel, and I will see you guys out there. Have an amazing day, everyone.